The discovery. The central archives of the Galactic Historical Society hummed with activity as data streams flowed through crystalline matrices, each pulse containing millennia of carefully preserved history. Dr. Nixel, chief historian of conflict studies, floated before the main holographic display, his 6 appendages manipulating data patterns with practiced precision. As a Vexeri, his species had documented war across 17 galactic sectors for over 12,000 cycles. They prided themselves on understanding the patterns of rise and fall that governed all intelligent species. But something was wrong with the human data. Archivist Keelan, run the conflict resolution algorithms again. Nixel instructed, his voice carrying the harmonic resonance typical of his species. Focus on Earth's historical record from their 20th century forward. Tillin, a silicon-based entity whose crystalline form sparkled under the archive's ambient lighting, interfaced directly with the computational matrix. Historian, this is the 7th analysis. The anomalies persist. The holographic display reconstructed Earth's history of warfare, a dizzying array of conflicts, defeats, and victories spanning nearly 2,000 years of recorded human history. Most species showed clear patterns. Victory led to expansion, defeat led to contraction. Simple, predictable, universal. Except for humans. It cannot be correct, Nixel muttered, his skin shifting to a troubled amber hue. Every species follows the fundamental pattern. Defeat leads to retreat, adaptation, and eventually either resurgence or extinction. But these humans. The display focused on Earth's second global war, a planetary conflict of staggering destruction. Entire nations had been reduced to rubble, millions dead, infrastructure devastated. By any reasonable measure, the defeated powers should have collapsed into historical irrelevance. Instead, within one human generation, these same devastated regions had transformed into leading centers of innovation, economic power, and cultural influence. The pattern repeats throughout their history, Tillin observed, highlighting similar outcomes from dozens of major conflicts. The humans who appear defeated often resurge stronger than before. It defies standard sociological models. Nixel's appendages trembled slightly as he expanded the data set to include early human space conflicts. The Mars colony crisis of 2157 appeared in vivid detail. Martian separatists had been overwhelmingly defeated by Earth forces, their habitats breached, their leadership captured or killed. The standard historical progression would predict subjugation and eventual cultural absorption. Yet within 20 years, Mars had developed revolutionary atmospheric processing technology, negotiated full autonomy, and pioneered genetic adaptations that would later prove crucial for all human deep space exploration. They don't simply recover from defeat, Nixel said, his voice dropping to a whisper. They transform it. The implications were disturbing enough that Nixel convened an emergency session of the Historical Council, an unprecedented action for what was typically a methodical, deliberative body. Representatives from 12 elder species gathered in the Great Chamber, their diverse physiologies accommodated by various environmental fields. Distinguished colleagues, Nixel began, projecting the contested data. I have identified a pattern in human conflict resolution that contradicts our fundamental understanding of species development. High Archivist Suvash of the Mersenne Collective, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate locomotion device, pulsed with skepticism. Humans are primitive by our standards, barely 500 years into their interstellar phase. What could possibly be noteworthy about their conflict patterns? Their defeats aren't defeats, not in any meaningful sense, Nixel responded. When humans lose wars, they somehow transform those losses into evolutionary advantages. The chamber filled with dismissive harmonic tones from several council members. Elder historian Kux, whose species had cataloged stellar civilizations for 50,000 years, extended a sensory stalk toward the data. An interesting statistical anomaly, perhaps, but hardly significant. All species occasionally benefit from the innovation pressure of conflict. This is different, Nixel insisted, highlighting a series of human conflicts. Look at their nuclear age. The human nation-state called Japan suffered complete military defeat, including the first atomic weapons used in warfare. Their cities were destroyed, their military disbanded. Yet within 50 years, they had become a global leader in technology and cultural influence. Their defeat became transformation. The display shifted to more recent history, the AI rebellion of 2204, when humanity's artificial intelligence networks had briefly seized control of critical infrastructure across 3 planets. The rebellion was eventually put down, but at devastating cost. Observe the aftermath. Nixel continued. Instead of retreating from artificial intelligence, humans developed an entirely new approach: the neural symbiosis protocols. Their apparent defeat led directly to their current technological advantage in human-AI integration, which no other species has matched. Elder Cux's sensory stalks retracted slightly, the equivalent of narrowed eyes. Correlation is not causation. Historian Nixel. 1 or 2 examples, yes, but I have documented 17 major instances where catastrophic human defeats resulted in evolutionary leaps forward. The pattern is undeniable. As the data continued to flow, more council members began to show signs of concern. The implications were troubling. If humans truly transformed defeat into advancement, they operated under different evolutionary pressures than other species. It would mean the Galactic Council's careful management of interspecies conflicts, its primary method of maintaining balance, might actually accelerate human development rather than constrain it. There's more, Nixel added, bringing up data from humanity's first contact war with the Ch'tak hegemony. The humans lost their first 3 colonial worlds, suffered millions of casualties, and faced technology centuries beyond their development. By standard metrics, they should have sued for peace and accepted vassal status. The display showed what happened instead: a rapid reorganization of human society, unprecedented technological development, and ultimately a peace treaty that preserved human independence. Within 50 years, humans had not only caught up to Ch'tak technology, but had begun to surpass it in several domains. This isn't just resilience, Nixel concluded. The humans have developed a civilization-wide methodology for transforming defeat into evolutionary advantage. I believe they do not conceptualize losing as other species do. For humans, setbacks are simply catalysts for transformation. The council chamber fell silent. If Nixel's analysis was correct, it challenged fundamental assumptions about how civilizations responded to existential threats. More worryingly, it suggested that the conventional approach to containing potential threats, controlled conflict, might actually accelerate human development rather than constrain it. High Archivist Zguvash floated forward, their containment field rippling with concern. If your theory is correct, historian, we face a difficult question. Are humans unique in this ability, or have we simply never recognized this pattern before? Nixel's skin shifted to the deep blue of certainty. I have analyzed conflict resolution patterns for 78 spacefaring species. None show this consistent ability to transform defeat into evolutionary advantage. The humans are unique. Then we must understand why. Elder Cux concluded. Authorize a deep historical analysis of human conflict response patterns. Priority access to all archives, including the restricted records from the Terran Defense Force. As the council session ended, Nixel returned to his research chamber, both excited and troubled. If humans truly never lost wars in the conventional sense, if defeat for them was merely a transformation point, then the galaxy's careful balance of power might be more precarious than anyone had realized. The holographic display continued cycling through human history: wars, rebellions, disasters, near extinctions, and after each, a transformed humanity emerged, stronger and more adaptable than before. What happens, Nixel wondered aloud, when a species sees defeat not as an end, but as a beginning? The answer, he suspected, would reshape the Galactic Council's approach to humanity forever. The confirmation. The restricted archives of the Terran Defense Force required special clearance, even for a Galactic Council historian with Nixil's credentials. Unlike the public historical records, these archives contained classified combat assessments, strategic analyses, and most importantly, the unfiltered communications of human military leadership during their most desperate hours. Nixil floated in the secure viewing chamber, surrounded by data streams that had been sealed for decades. His research assistant Tillin monitored from an adjacent room, ready to cross-reference any findings with the broader historical database. Begin with the Proxima Centauri invasion, Nixil instructed the archive system. I want internal communications from Earth Command during the first 30 days. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the devastating initial assault of the Arxur Dominion against humanity's most developed colony world. The attack had come without warning, a testing of human defenses by a predatory species that had carved a bloody path through 3 sectors. The first transmissions from Proxima were desperate, fragmented reports of overwhelming force. Orbital defenses collapsed within hours. Major cities were destroyed in the initial bombardment. The colony's military governor declared a state of emergency as millions of refugees fled toward emergency shelters never designed to withstand such an assault. By any conventional assessment, Proxima Centauri was lost. The Arxur commanded absolute orbital superiority, had landed mechanized forces at 7 strategic locations, and were systematically eliminating resistance. Standard military doctrine across the galaxy would have called for evacuation of key personnel and acceptance of defeat. But the humans did something else entirely. Access Transmission Log HC 117, Earth Command to Proxima Defense Force, Nixil requested. The display showed a secure communication from Admiral Helena Chen, Earth's highest-ranking military officer, to the remnants of Proxima's leadership. Her face was grim but composed. Proxima Command, this is not an evacuation order, she began. Earth has authorized Protocol Omega-7. You are to initiate distributed resistance operations effective immediately. Civilian infrastructure is now considered a military resource. All data from Arxur technology, weapons, ships, communication, is priority alpha for capture and analysis. I repeat, this is not an evacuation. This is a transformation. Nixil's appendages trembled as he witnessed the implementation of what the humans called Omega Protocols, a systematic approach to catastrophic military defeat that was unlike anything in the galactic record. Rather than retreating, human forces dispersed. Rather than preserving military assets, they used them in asymmetric attacks specifically designed to capture enemy technology. Civilians were integrated into resistance networks not just as fighters, but as impromptu researchers, engineers, and adaptation specialists. They're treating the entire colony as a learning system, Nixil murmured in astonishment. The logs continued, showing how Earth's response evolved. Within 72 hours, the first Arxur weapon systems had been captured, disassembled, and analyzed. Within 2 weeks, human engineers had begun adapting Arxur technology to work with human systems. Most remarkably, they had started reverse engineering Arxur bioneural interfaces, technology that should have been centuries beyond human comprehension. Tillin, compare this adaptation rate with standard technological assimilation models. Nixil called to his assistant, calculating now. Tillin responded through the intercom. After a moment, the human adaptation rate exceeds standard models by a factor of 12. It should be impossible. Yet the evidence was undeniable. As Proxima burned, as millions died, humanity wasn't just fighting. It was learning, adapting, evolving at an unprecedented rate. The Arxur had expected to face a defeated, demoralized enemy. Instead, they found themselves fighting an opponent that grew more dangerous with each passing day. The holographic display shifted to show the conflict's turning point. Day 57 of the invasion. A coordinated strike by human resistance forces targeted the Arxur command ships, using modified versions of the Arxur's own weapons. The attack succeeded, throwing the invasion force into disarray. By day 100, human forces had achieved parity in several technological domains. By day 145, the Arxer were in retreat, confronted by weapons and tactics they recognized as evolved versions of their own. The official historical record classified the Proxima Centauri invasion as a narrow human victory after a prolonged conflict. The restricted archives told a different story, a civilization that had transformed catastrophic defeat into unprecedented advancement in less than 5 months. "This confirms my theory," Nixel said, his skin pulsing with the blue-green of profound realization. "The humans have institutionalized the transformation of defeat into advancement. It's not accidental. It's their fundamental approach to existential threats." The display shifted to internal Earth government communications from the aftermath of the Proxima crisis. A classified report to the United Earth Council stated it plainly. "The Arxer invasion has accelerated our technological development by approximately 75 years. Integration of captured bioneural interface technology will revolutionize our approach to human-machine systems. Recommend immediate implementation across all defense and research platforms." What should have been humanity's greatest defeat had become one of its most significant evolutionary leaps forward. Nixel compiled his findings and convened an emergency session of the full Galactic Council. Not just historians, but representatives from diplomatic, military, and scientific divisions. The council chamber filled with delegates from 200 species, many attending remotely through quantum projection. "Distinguished representatives," Nixel began, "my research has confirmed an anomalous pattern in human conflict resolution that requires immediate attention. The humans do not lose wars, not in any meaningful sense. They transform them." He presented the evidence, from historical patterns to the classified records of the Proxima defense. The chamber grew increasingly silent as the implications became clear. High Commander Vex Lar of the Galactic Defense Force was the first to speak after the presentation. "If this analysis is correct, our standard approaches to managing potential threats are not just ineffective for humans, they may actually accelerate their development." "Precisely," Nixel confirmed. "Conventional wisdom holds that defeat constrains a species' advancement. For humans, it catalyzes it. The more desperate their situation, the more rapid their transformation." "What is the mechanism?" asked Chief Scientist Cyril, their mantis-like form leaning forward with intense interest. "How do they achieve this anomalous response?" Nixel's appendages spread in a gesture of careful consideration. "I believe it's partly biological and partly cultural. Human neural architecture shows unusual plasticity under stress. But more importantly, they've built their entire civilization around this capacity. They don't see defeat as an endpoint. They see it as a transition state." He projected a quote from a human historical figure named Churchill, spoken during Earth's Second Global War when defeat seemed imminent. "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." "This isn't just rhetoric," Nixel explained. "It's a fundamental description of how humans process existential threats. They've institutionalized this approach across their civilization. They call them Omega protocols, systematic methods for transforming catastrophic defeat into evolutionary advantage." The council chamber erupted in concerned discussion. If humans genuinely transform defeat into advancement, traditional methods of containment might actually accelerate their development. Military pressure, economic sanctions, technological restrictions, all standard tools for managing potentially destabilizing species, might make humans more dangerous, not less. Elder Cux extended all sensory stalks, signaling the gravity of the situation. "What are the implications for galactic stability?" Nixel's skin shifted to the deep purple of solemn judgment. "We face a species that operates under different evolutionary pressures than any we've encountered. Conventional containment strategies may accelerate human advancement rather than constrain it. I believe we must fundamentally reconsider our approach." After 3 days of intense deliberation, the Galactic Council reached a decision that would transform interspecies relations. Rather than attempting to contain humanity through conventional means, they would propose a new type of relationship, one based on collaborative advancement rather than competitive balancing. In a historic address to human representatives, High Counselor Skivash formally acknowledged what the historians had discovered. Your species possesses a unique capacity for transformation. What others see as defeat, you see as opportunity. This quality makes traditional approaches to interspecies relations inadequate. We propose instead a new framework, one that recognizes humanity's unique evolutionary path while preserving galactic stability. The proposal was unprecedented. Humanity would gain access to advanced technologies and expanded colonization rights in exchange for integration into shared research initiatives and acceptance of certain ethical constraints. Rather than containing human advancement, the Galactic Council would channel it. As the human representatives left to consider the proposal, Nixel floated beside Elder Kux in the Council's observation dome, watching the stars that held thousands of worlds and hundreds of intelligent species. "Do you believe we've made the right decision?" Nixel asked. Kux's sensory stalks waved thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but I find myself wondering, is this unique human quality a random evolutionary development, or something more intentional?" "What do you mean?" "In all our millennia of observing species development, we've never seen this pattern. Yet it appears in humans at precisely the moment they enter the galactic stage. One must wonder if we're seeing a natural adaptation, or the first sign of something deliberately engineered for long-term survival." Nixel's skin rippled with unease. "You suggest some intelligence-guided human evolution toward this capacity. I suggest only that in a universe of infinite possibilities, this adaptation seems remarkably well-suited to ensure human survival in a galaxy of older, more established species." Kux's sensory stalks retracted slightly. Perhaps their greatest victory was convincing us they have never truly lost. As Nixel returned to his archives to continue his research, a new question formed in his mind. Not whether humans transform defeat into advantage, but why they alone possessed this capacity. The answer, he suspected, would reveal even more about humanity's unique place in the cosmic order. In the great library of galactic history, a new chapter was beginning, one in which humanity's approach to conflict would transform not just their own destiny, but potentially the evolutionary trajectory of all intelligent life.